And right in the middle of the board meeting, he groaned and closed his eyes. We stopped the board meeting. I thought he was not feeling well. And he closed his eyes for about 5 or 7 minutes. Then he opened his eyes and he said, right at this moment, he said, thousands of people are being killed in secret in Eastern Europe. And he said, there's just this circle of souls around the earth looking for human bodies. And I had the experience at that moment that there was a force, a silent force coming out of that group of millions of people that was like lifting the consciousness of the whole planet at that moment. Giving a blessing to everyone who asked that day. You have as many brain cells as there are people on the planet at that moment. You weren't meditating. He said, no. He said, I was going around the world.
You didn't go from first gear to second gear to third gear. You started with the fifth.
Yeah. He becomes a clear picture of the goal of what's possible for a human being. And at another level, he becomes a complete mirror to you.
Hi, welcome to today's session. We have a very special guest today with us. We have John Osborne from the US. John has been with the Art of Living from the very earliest of days, and he's been with Gurudev nearly 4 decades. And he's one of the very first members of the Art of Living, and in fact one of the people who started Art of Living in the US. John has taught thousands of people from across the world, and he's very, very popular and a lovely storyteller, and we are very happy to have you with us today, John.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So let's start from the start. How did you come across Gurudev and the Art of Living? How did it start, and was there a backstory to it?
Always a backstory to it. I think I should start with saying that I learned to meditate when I was 17 years old in college. And at the end of college, I learned to teach meditation through the TM movement. And I taught meditation there for about 15 years. So I moved to Santa Barbara in 1988 and was welcomed at a dinner party with some other meditators. And there was a pundit there, a pundit named Ramakrishna. He was a palm leaf reader at Jyotishi, and he needed a place to stay. So I just rented this wonderful little cottage on the beach in Santa Barbara. And I didn't know much about Indians, but I knew if I rolled out a mat on the floor and in my living room and made him welcome, he would be just fine with that. And being an enterprising Tamil pundit, he set up shop in my living room. So for the next week, all day long, there were people coming to see him. And then one day he said that a boyhood friend of his from Bangalore was coming to speak at the university. Would I take him to see him? So just as an act of hospitality, because he didn't drive, I took him to see. As it turns out, it was in Jeff Houck's house, and it was a person who was then known as Pandit Ravi Shankar. And so I walked in the bedroom, and it was a big startle to me, because number one, a voice said in my left ear, take off your shoes, you're in the presence of a Brahman Jnani. That was startling.
Did you know what Brahmagyani is?
I had a kind of an idea. It was like, you're not in the presence of an ordinary person. I knew it was a state of higher state of consciousness. And when I looked at him, he was much more familiar to me than the teacher I had been serving for all those years. And I started to laugh because he was so familiar, and I was obviously familiar to him. And the second sensation was that I felt my whole life as I had planned it, like the floor dropping beneath me. Like it was clear that my life in that one moment was not going to be anything like I had planned, career-wise, plans-wise, anything. And so it was a little startling, but also very real and very, how would I say it? In a funny way, very normal, like very authentic, very real. And so I smiled and we had a short conversation. And then I went to hear him speak at the university, the intro. And there was no Art of Living Foundation or anything. There was nobody traveling with him, guy with a suitcase. And then I took the Art of Living course, which could be known as the Happiness course or the Sky Breath workshop or whatever.
That Gurudev taught?
That he taught, only he taught. And in those days, it was all live, him talking. These days, people in the Art of Living will know that depending on how they learn, they either learn with a 10-minute breathing session or online or a 30-minute breathing session. And my first Kriya breathing session was 2.5 hours. So people were yelling, going around, running around the room, doing a lot of purifying. But that was not my experience. My experience is that I went deeper in meditation than I'd ever gone before, and I've been meditating for a while. And I remembered or was given again an experience that I had as a child, where I grew up in a small town in upstate New York, and it was safe for little kids to go running around in those days. And I'd either be walking or sometimes riding my bike, and I would just disappear. Like there would only be a connection to everything in the universe. I think a lot of young kids have those experiences. And that's who I knew myself to be. But as I grew older, that experience disappeared, and I longed for it. But it seemed gone forever. But when I went into that elongated breathing session, I went deeper than I'd ever gone before. It was almost as if I walked through a door and that little kid was there, and that experience came back. And so just big tears rolling down my face. And I thought, wow, I've been given something priceless that I thought I'd lost forever. And if I could help at least one other person in this world have that experience, my whole life would be worthwhile. So it was a real turning point. And then I walked out. This is where I kind of intuited what the art of living would be like. I learned at a place called the Santa Barbara Mission, which was founded by the Spanish like 300 years ago. And it's on a beautiful plateau overlooking the ocean. And I was so shaken kind of in my body to have had this experience. I just needed to walk out and get some fresh air. And I heard these little footsteps behind me. Turned around, and it was this Pandit Ravi Shankar. And he said, kind of, I think he wanted to make sure I was still doing okay. And he said, tell me who the broken people in your society, people that no one cares about, who are those people?
This is just after you did the Kriya.
Yeah. And I said, the homeless people. And in those days, it was the days of the AIDS epidemic, and there were no AIDS medicines. So I said, oh, people with AIDS, they treat them like lepers. And he said, oh, good, we'll start with them. I didn't know what he meant by that, start with them. But by the next year, I was a teacher of the art of living, and I was working with the AIDS population in West Hollywood. So it was the first time I'd seen the connection between sadhana, meditation, and service to other people in a very real way. So we were off to the races. The next day or 2 days later, I thought, this nice pundit that I met, didn't get to spend very much time with him. I'll just ask him to come to my house for puja. So he arrived at my house for Guru Puja with like one other person or two other people, which is not the case anymore.
Yeah.
Did the puja, and then we took a walk on the beach. And I said, have we been together before? And he said, yeah, we've been together before. It seemed pretty obvious by that point. And then I said, I don't know what you're here to do. I said, but I think it's going to be something huge. And I don't know how I can, but I want to help you do that. And he said, it'll all happen all by itself. And then I remembered a story that I'd read recently in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Some people may not know that, but it's stories about Krishna. And it's a very famous story where Indra gets angry at a village and tries to drown the village. And Krishna takes pity on the village and holds up the mountain. And the villagers, wanting to get comically in on the act, hold their sticks up under the mountain. So at the end of that conversation, I said, I have my stick up for you. And just the next weekend, there was a course in Los Angeles. I went there and wasn't able to do much, but just assisted a little on the side. Weekend after that, there was a course in San Francisco. I called some friends from around the country who knew me well, and I said, whatever you're doing, drop what you're doing, get an airplane ticket, and come on this course. I'll be there too. So some people that later were on the board of the Art of Living, very significant people, were on that course. And then I was on a 10-day course in Canada the week after that. And it just took off like a rocket on its own.
So this is like within days of you meeting Gurudev.
Yeah.
So your life changed like pretty much instantly.
Changed and sped up dramatically. Hang on to your hat. Like that. And it was just, oh, okay. He was in Santa Barbara, now he's in Los Angeles. Maybe there's something I can do to help That was my really strong desire to do something, to give back something for what I've been given, which was, in my case, I thought beyond priceless. Something that priceless in your life that you thought you'd lost. And then in Los Angeles, oh, where's everybody? Oh, they're going to San Francisco. Okay. I mean, I had a job in the middle. Somehow I managed the job as well. And it just, one thing led to another and led to another. And that's when he meant, when he said it'll all happen all by itself, like that. And the next year, he came back and we had teacher training in my living room, and we became teachers and started the Art of Living that summer. You know, got a 501c3 nonprofit thing, started on the kitchen table, and away I went.
I remember this anecdote that you were feeling something, and then Gurudev read something. I mean, he said something that surprised you.
He said, make sure in your budget, it was funny, we had no money. You have a budget. To make room for doctors and lawyers and accountants, because one day millions of people are coming to this organization. And there were maybe 30 of us at that point. And I thought, but didn't say, poor man, we've got to give this guy some English lessons. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And he said, John, my English is very good. He read my mind. And he said, when I say millions, I mean millions. So that perplexed me. And in the house I was living in at that time, there was a rose garden with 100 rose bushes. And when the sun was going down, he would walk in that rose garden, probably doing his japa or something. And we didn't like to disturb him, but I was really mulling over in my mind, millions of people. Because he was spending a lot of time with each of us. The people who were really at the tip of the spear, there were maybe 4 or 5, 8 of us. And he was really trying to develop us very quickly, because we were all he had. You know, it wasn't necessarily that we were super people at all, and we needed some work to be able to really do his work. So he was really working with us individually. And I thought, how is he going to do that with millions of people? So I did interrupt his japa. I went out in the rose garden and I said, I'm troubled. I know you said millions of people. How are you going to take care of them like you're taking care of us? And he said, I'll tell you a secret. He didn't tell me I couldn't share the secret, so well, I can tell you. Told many people. He said, on the day you're born, me or any of us, you have as many brain cells as there are people on the planet at that moment. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. And I said, so somehow all those people are going to be like living in your head or connected. I said, how does the connection come? He said, I don't make the connection. He said, they make the connection to me. If they want to be connected to me, they're connected to me, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, very.
Yeah. And he said, so if anybody needs my help, he said, I feel it. And I said, well, how do you know which one? And he said, John, if I pull one hair of your head, you know which hair it is. I had more hair then than I do now. And I said, yeah. So I sort of understood it, but I didn't fully understand it till about 20 years later, when I was traveling with him, I think in Europe, and helping him at the end of the day. And he was getting ready to go to bed, and he brushed his teeth, and he was in his, getting in his sleep dhoti, and right before he went to sleep, he sat up in his bed, and he closed his eyes. I also closed my eyes, but it somehow didn't feel like he was meditating. Couldn't quite figure out what was going on. About 15 minutes later, 20 minutes later, he opened his eyes. I said, you weren't meditating. He said, no. He said, I was going around the world giving a blessing to everyone who asked that day. So somehow, in here, he was connected to everybody and knew what everybody needed at that moment. And that's only the beginning of what I see that he's able to do, not in his physical body, but he's connected that way really to everybody in the world, and does what he can in every moment for all of us.
So you had, in every way, you were introduced to a very new world. The things that happen around him and the things that he led you through. How was it like to make sense of all of this? Is it real? Am I dreaming? How did you settle into that?
It happens in stages. First you feel a connection to him, what you perceive him to be as a human being. And you have interactions with him, and he tells you things about yourself that you hardly knew, and opens up things and removes things or helps you get beyond things. So you become aware of his wisdom and his skill and his consciousness, and then maybe you're on a silence course and you discover what is possible in silence, which is different than conversation. And then you have some experience with him when you feel connected to him away from his physical body and realize that he's more than his physical body. So it happens in stages like that.
So with Gurudev, I've seen, it's been an experience of many people, myself also. You go through something and then it makes sense much later. You much later understand, oh, this is what happened to me.
Right. Or this is what had to happen to me.
Yeah.
In order to.
Yeah. You find the words and the intelligence to describe it much later sometimes.
You have to look back at it.
Yeah.
And sometimes things that seem very difficult or very overwhelming are things that you had to go through to become more free, or to be more in the present moment, or to become more compassionate. But there's an old Chinese saying, no such things as friends or enemies, only teachers. So every moment is there to teach you about something. And some of them are very hard. And that's why you really need someone who has, crossed over the river to be able to clarify to you what it is that you're going through, what it is that you need to go through even more or grow even more. So on the one hand, he becomes a clear picture of the goal of what's possible for a human being. And on another level, he becomes a complete mirror to you. So that when you're with him, you see things about yourself that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. Both of those things at the same time.
So having been with him for 35 years?
Yeah.
35 years. Yeah, and having had experiences that you had, what would you say is your connection to him? How are you related or connected to him? What's your connection?
There's a very polite answer to that question. He's my teacher, he's, my best friend.
That's not what I'm asking.
I know. I'm wondering where this interview is going to end up on the internet. And it may sound a little arrogant to say this, but have you ever seen a couple who's been married for 50, 60, or 70 years? And it's hard to tell where one of them leaves off and the other. That's what it feels like. Like no space, no difference. But when you say that about an enlightened being, somehow it sounds like you're saying something very proud about yourself.
Yeah, but it's been 35 years.
I don't have that. I don't have that experience. My experience is there's just no daylight between the two of us.
Yeah. So, given that you didn't go from first gear to second gear to third gear, you started with the fifth.
Yeah.
So, what were some of the other experiences that the pre-Art of Living John would have not believed or struggled to? Like for instance, him reading your mind.
Yeah, a lot of miracles happen in those early days. Guruji was new to the West, very innocent, and so you could ask him a question, whatever question you asked him, he'd answer it in a very clear way, and pre-social media, right? And you'd see quiet, hidden ways that he helped people a lot. And I started to have experiences of him even when he wasn't physically present. I was on an airplane. I've told this story a lot. Landing in Los Angeles from a business meeting in Arizona with a business colleague, a woman business colleague. And we have these seasons every 4 or 5 years in California called El Nino, and they're like super monsoon seasons. And it was one of those days where it was raining so hard you couldn't see your hand in front of you. And as we were starting to land, the plane turned upside down and started to shake. And anybody that wasn't in a seatbelt went flying. I found myself on the ceiling. I was on the floor, luggage flying, people screaming. It only happened for maybe a couple of minutes.
But is that normal? I mean, do planes go?
No.
Okay.
We're not at the end of the story yet. And the lady who was with me, of course, was screaming, and she dug her nails, just because she was afraid, into my arm, fingernails hanging onto me for dear life. And I closed my eyes and I said, Jai Gurudev. I was just startled by what she did. And Gurudev appeared and he said, not tonight. Like, people thought the plane was going to crash. He said, not tonight. Like, don't worry. And it was just like, he was right in front of me. And so I relaxed. I hoped that the plane, it did in about a minute and a half. And it turns out that there had been a traffic helicopter, weather helicopter, that had almost had a mid-air collision. And the only way they could have avoided it and to save the passengers was to do this barrel roll. And so, number one, I had less fear about my own safety from that point, although I, took all the necessary precautions we all do. And number two, I realized he was much bigger than his physical form. And so that was another kind of level of, and a feeling like that he was present in my life all the time.
Yeah, that's very trippy.
Yeah.
So,
but sometimes it's very normal too. That course in LA that I told you that I went to, it turns out it was in the middle of July, and it was Guru Purnima. And so we kind of put together a Guru Purnima celebration in this little yoga studio after the first night of the course. It was very impromptu. 20 people there, 30 people there. And the next Guru Purnima was in Canada. Of course, as a dutiful student and teacher, I had bought my ticket. I was ready to go celebrate Guru Purnima in Canada. But in our living room, people were starting to hear that there was this saint that was in Santa Barbara, a part of Santa Barbara called Montecito, and people were just, I don't even know how they found out about it. A lot of them hadn't taken the course, but they found out if they came at night, they could meet this saint. So there was this group of 20, 30, 40 people that were just sort of hanging out. Some of them had taken the course, but many of them were just curious. So the day before I was supposed to leave for Guru Purnima, he called me in his room, and he said, John, what's going to happen to all these people that like come to see us at night during Guru Purnima? And I was like, beats the heck out of me. I'm going to be in Canada. And then he said, would you like to stay here and do Guru Purnima for them? And it was a big, moment for me. But I didn't want to let him down. It's painful. You get attached to an outcome. So I said, is that what you'd like me to do? And he said, yeah, that'd be very nice. I was like, not happy, but I did it. And so I thought if I'm going to do it, I should do it. So, 20 people ended up in my living room. I sang, we breathed, we had fun, people got up and danced. And then I was in the kitchen thinking, must be some reason he asked me to do this. And the phone rang, and it was him. He said, pretty nice satsang you're having in Santa Barbara. And it was both him appreciating it and also letting me know that he knew.
I'm watching
what I did.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't such a bad Guru Purnima, actually.
Yeah.
In a different sort of way. So there were a lot of things like, because there weren't that many of us. Like, he interacts with thousands and thousands of people, so they may have that. But when there's 4 or 5 of you responsible for his visit, and you're feeding him, and you're driving him around, and you're finding a place for him to stay, and you're setting up meetings for him, a lot of opportunity for interaction. So, and all he had was us, we're pretty normal, average kind of people, so he really had to do a lot to lift us up quick if we were going to be able to teach this course in his name without him physically being present. Make sense?
Yeah.
So we got hammered on a little bit to get out some of the biggest rocks, and learned a lot about ourselves and a lot about each other and all that. Some of those people are still some of my closest friends in the world 35 years later, because when you're thrown into a situation like that, you learn to work together.
So through all this, through he's expanding your vision of life, your understanding, and you're going through these incredible experiences also with him. How did your understanding of him evolve over time? Like, to begin with, what he was, and with time, what he became to you?
You know, Gurudev told me once that the way that the guru or teacher appears to the student is very important. If he seems too close to the student will say, well, this person's just like me. What do I have to learn from them? If he seems too far away, it's like, I'll never get there. So what happens is, as you get to experience him on one level, another level unfolds, and then another level unfolds, and then another level unfolds. And 35 years later, it's still unfolding. But you have to take, say if you're a teacher, as a teacher, you have to take the consciousness of the person that you're teaching, you have to be in there listening. Do you understand what I'm saying? You have to present the knowledge or yourself in a way that they can relate to, where they are.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't work. So as you, the student, grow and evolve, you're able to see different levels of who he is. And that just continues and continues, maybe on into infinity, I don't know. But after 35 years, it's certainly still continuing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And we want some glimpses into those steps that you've been through.
All shall be revealed in time.
No, this is the time.
No, we'll see. We'll see. See what comes out today.
I mean, there is, you're facing two ways. One is, on one side is Gurudev. I mean, he can hold all your attention. But on the other side is the world, your life, and etc., etc. So you have to face both.
Yeah, you're doing this, but you're also being, an everyday human being. You have a job, you have a home.
Yeah.
And I remember once, my career ended up being mostly in business and finance. But I had this nice little job that I was trading an investment fund, and I had an antenna on the roof, which is how you did it in those days, and lived on the beach. It was a very compact job, but it was nice. Gave me some flexibility. And I had to drive Gurudev down to a meeting in Los Angeles. And we're on the Santa Monica freeway, busiest freeway in the world. And he looked around and he says, you're going to work down here. I said, I don't even like to drive down here. People in Santa Barbara, it's a very beautiful town. They sort of have opinions of Los Angeles. And he said, no, it'll be really good for you. He said, the people you do business with down here will become interested in the art of living. And the people in art of living will become interested in your business. And that's exactly the way it happened. But on my own, you had to put a gun to my head to get me to think about wanting to do business in LA. And it ended up being exactly as he said, and exactly the right thing for me to do, because doing business in LA exposed me to a much larger universe of people. Eventually we had a LA center. There's a lot of art of living in LA. And I grew in a way that I couldn't have in that little tropical enclave of Santa Barbara on the beach. So I tell people I didn't have an unhappy life before I started Art of Living. I've been meditating for a while, teaching meditation. But in retrospect, it was a little life. And now my life is much bigger. Much, much, much bigger.
Yeah.
But it had to happen in stages.
Yeah.
If somebody had told me then what I'd be doing now, I just came off of 3 months of traveling to different countries teaching, and long days in many cities and lots of airplane rides, I would have thought, oh no, I'll never do that. That's crazy. And it had to happen gradually over time.
And now it's no sweat.
Now it's some sweat.
Okay.
But it's very doable.
Yeah.
And you get powered by the needs and desires of the people that you meet in those countries, and it's just so fulfilling.
Yeah.
But you also have a body, and you have to take
Yeah.
care of your body and take care of yourself in the process.
Yeah.
And also there are many people in those countries that do their best to take care of you while you're doing it.
Yeah. This is clearly not an ordinary life.
Actually, it feels like the most ordinary life in the world to me.
Okay.
Just to me.
But from the outside, I mean, relate to this as pre-Art of Living John.
Yeah, I think Pre-Art of Living John was really good training for me because I had to give intro talks, I had to teach courses, I had to be with a wide variety of people, so it was good preparation. But now I see the ordinariness of life. I mean, there's one word for ordinary which is kind of banal, like I do my wash and I cook my food and stuff. But for me, ordinary and the word authentic are coming closer and closer and closer. And an authentic life for me, for not just for me but for everybody, I think, is really doing what you came to do on this planet. You know, the Sanskrit word is dharma. And so I think the most ordinary life, the most authentic life, is doing what you came here to do. Everybody has a gift, Sri Sri says, that they came here to give. And one of the things I tell my students, I just taught some vets, returning soldiers in Australia, people that had really suffered a lot. I said, yeah, you suffered a lot. Now they have the breathing and they're doing a lot better. I said, but you have candles only you can light. There are other soldiers out there that need this knowledge. And so what I'm doing now fills me full of wonder. What happens? I never thought I'd get to those countries and do those things. But it also feels very ordinary because I feel like in every moment I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And there's something inside that just says, okay, in the next moment you're doing that, the next moment you're doing this, the next moment you're doing this. So I don't really have a concept of future very much, although I've just been told about other countries that I'm going to be visiting, or countries I'm going to be visiting again, but it's just that breathing puts you so in the present moment. It's just, okay, next, 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 next. And there's something inside of you that develops that sort of lets you know what you're supposed to do in every moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. How would you introduce Gurudev to a very dear friend, somebody from your family perhaps, somebody who's very, very dear to you? How would you introduce Gurudev to them, but they don't know him? How would you introduce them?
You mean they're going to meet him, or they're just describing him to them?
Just describing him to them.
I would say he's one of the happiest, wisest, kindest, most compassionate beings I've ever been around.
And imagine it's your son or a nephew, and
a young person.
A young person, yes. And you're introducing Gurudev to them, and introduction and advice.
Depends how young they are. But I'd say, I have this dear friend. He's really wise. He has a great sense of humor. And there's a tremendous amount of joy and fun around him. And he's made a huge difference in my life. Would you like to meet him? You have to tell people things where they're coming from, you know?
Yeah.
I work a lot with teenagers, actually. Considering my age, it's sort of
so
unusual. Yeah. But I do. I work a lot with college kids. And there's something about the joy that they already have that gets magnified when they get involved in art of living. And also they're just at the point where they're trying to figure out what they want to do in life. And young people, when they get given the opportunity, they really want to do a lot of service. So that sort of joy, the community, deep inside. Also young people, feel like we're getting an introductory talk about young people, but they have a lot of emotional ups and downs. And when that kind of settles down and their hearts come up, and it changes the whole, that's why I like working with young people. I mean, I learned to meditate when I was 17 years old. It changed my whole life. So when you get somebody at that age and you show them a possibility of what their life could be like, they just go for it.
And how have you seen these young people connect with Gurudev? I mean,
they can relate to him immediately. He used to say there's a part of him that, what did he call himself? He didn't call himself a crazy teenager, but there's a part of him that can be to anyone where they are. And so his sense of humor, his understanding of the difficulties that they're in, his obvious care for people that he's around, they just immediately gravitate towards him. They just feel immediately comfortable. They want to know what he has to say, and it sort of propels them on the adventure of their life. And they really liked that a lot. Uniformly enthusiastic is how I would say it. And in a very humorous, lighthearted, fun, adventurous kind of way.
You mentioned the project Welcome Home Troops. Tell us how that came about and what impact, because you were the first teacher who started teaching it.
I was one of several teachers that started teaching it. There was a woman named Deborah Alanya who went into either a restaurant, I think it was a restaurant or a bar or something, where there were a lot of Marines near San Diego, south of Los Angeles, and picked up a conversation with a bunch of Marines, and they asked her what she did, and she said she taught breathing, and they were associated with a vet center. And a lot of them were getting treatment for their trauma. And I don't know as whether they wanted to get to know her better or they wanted to know about the breathing, but they invited her to the center. And she invited me to join her. And we just tried a few breathing things out with them and saw that there was some benefit. And eventually we put a course together and saw that there was a lot of benefit. Eventually research was done on our techniques with vets and discovered that there was a drop of about 40% in a 7-day course of symptoms of post-traumatic stress. That's a lot. Most vets have either talk therapy or drugs that mask the symptoms. The interesting thing out of that 7-day course, which was researched not by us but by the University of Wisconsin and Stanford University, was that they tested the vets 6 months later and a year later, and the symptoms were still lower. So something happens in the breathing that not only puts you in the present moment, but takes a lot of things out of you that are keeping you from being in the present moment.
For good.
Yeah, for good.
So, because, regular people, other people who do the program, you ask them, how was it? They say, oh, I feel great, I have more energy, my mind is clear, and, I'm feeling good, and all that. But people like the vets who go through very intense experiences, and also people from the prisons.
And get stuck in those experiences. So they're completely not in the present moment.
But when they go through the program, their experience, also the transformation is much more intense.
Right.
So just tell us a few cases. You must have had thousands, seen thousands of healings.
Well, I'll just tell you one case. We have to interview the people beforehand to see what their medical condition is, and because we want to keep them safe on the course. And a lot of these people are addicted to different substances or taking, not uncommon, some of them are taking 10, 15 medications.
And they get into that as a coping mechanism from the
psychiatrists and the people in the
trauma
veterans.
That they've...
Yeah. And so I was interviewing this young guy named Tim. He's about 23 years old. And you ask them, can they make all the sessions of the course, and do they have any physical problems and stuff. And then if you have the feeling that you have to ask this question, you'll know by the end of the interview if you have to ask this question. You have to ask them, have you had any thoughts of harming yourself or other people? Tim said, yep. Right away he said, yep. I said, yourself or other people? He said, myself. Then you have to ask an even harder question, which is, do you have a plan? And he's like, yep. And I said, I made a joke. I said, well, it would be bad for your reputation if you decided to take your life in the middle of my course. So can you at least promise me that during these 5 days? And he's like, yeah, I can do that. So I kept a close eye on him. He had a really rough time. A lot of tough stuff came out. But at the end, everyone was sharing their experiences. And I didn't want to blow his cover. But I said, Tim, you talked to me about a plan beginning of the course. He didn't say what the plan was. I said, you still interested in that plan? He's like, hell no. Never want to do that. So it doesn't take very many experiences like that to get you to want to get on airplanes to reach out to those people. So we're just starting the VETS organization for the first time in Australia, and the experiences there are Australian teachers that we've trained to do that, and experiences there are exactly the same as in the US. So physical trauma, sexual trauma, emotional trauma from childhood or things that happened to them in their service. And at the end of the course, they're like unrecognizable, very different. And we teach them, to do these techniques at home. And I'm just in touch with the 2 teachers I taught with in Australia, and every week they're talking to the people and they're having a follow-up. And the wonderful thing about about vets, soldiers, people that have served in armed forces in any country, is that they have great values and they have a lot of integrity. So the minute they start to feel even a little better, all they want to do is serve other people. So they're all out telling their friends who are in a lot of suffering, and there'll be many more courses in Australia. And a lot of other countries are in need of this. So no shortage of work to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've been with the Art of Living for decades, from pretty much the very beginning in the US.
Yeah.
And you traveled to other countries as well around the world with Gurudev too. Yeah. And Art of Living is different to different people. I mean, you can describe it as a spiritual movement. You can describe it as a social network.
Humanitarian organization.
What role do you see Art of Living playing in society? What role has it played, and what role is it playing in society? What is the need that it fulfills?
You know, we're one of the largest, if not the largest, volunteer organization in the world, in 180 countries. And we're doing a lot of really good work. I did some work getting us connected to the UN in the beginning. We became a UN NGO. And I had to do some research, even in those days. It was a lot earlier in the Art of Living. We were doing volunteer work with 9 different UN organizations in India alone. So we're doing a lot of work around the world, much of which is known locally, but not known internationally. But finally, we're starting to get known internationally as well. And especially Sri Ravi Shankar himself is being seen as a peacemaker and a great humanitarian and a great example to many people about what they can do, you know, in volunteering in their lives. And so he's starting to get asked for advice and wisdom and counsel. You know, there's a video where the president of Colombia said, "Thank you for helping me with the FARC," and people in the Middle East, and many, many places where he has helped in conflict resolution. And I just see that as I see the world being in a very chaotic, changeable state right now, not least of which is my own country. And the more chaos happens and the more people get afraid of the changes and the more institutions that used to support people break down, the more people like Sri are invaluable, his understanding of human values and conflict resolution. So I see kind of the Art of Living paradigm becoming ever more, not just useful, but essential. And I see world leaders starting to pay attention to it. And so I think in the next few years, it's only going to get bigger and more effective and more well-known among people that are doing their best to solve the world's problems. I don't know if I answered your question or not, but.
But I'll ask it differently, from a different angle. What's the product? When you say Art of Living, this is what we deliver to somebody who comes to Art of Living. What is the product? Because when you say it's this course or it's this technique, it somehow doesn't feel enough adequate.
It's a really good question. Let me think about it. Just as a start to this, because I think it's a very profound question. I'm reminded for some reason of being in the office, an office at the State Department, that deals with foreign service in the United States, and this person, Undersecretary of the State Department, was considering a grant that we had, offered, written up, to work with Iraqi women whose husbands had died, teaching them skills and trauma relief, but also teaching them skills that they could support their family with. And she said, she was trying to understand, she said, I see that you teach these skills at going inside, and I also see that you do this volunteer work. What's the connection? I'm like, oh my God, what's the connection? Because you could see the grant was like hovering. I was with a teacher from the Middle East, and we're both just sitting there, and I prayed, and I thought, well, I think when you come down, you experience yourself at a deeper level. there's a sense of some human values rise up, compassion, connection to other people. And I had a wonderful spiritual teacher in my Christian background who said, when you come to the center of your own heart, you discover you're at the center of everyone else's heart too. So it's human values that rise, a sense of peace, a sense of belongingness that can be effective not only for individuals, but communities, even whole countries. So it's human values based, not just an education, but an experience that allows people to develop their full potential. And it turns out when you go down to that very deep place, all these values just come up naturally, not just peace, but wanting to live in community with other people, wanting to reach out and help other people, and a lot of inspiration and creativity and intuition comes up that can really help solve a lot of problems in the world. So I would say that what the Art of Living offers is unfolding the full potential of each person, and in that way, not just finding peace, but finding a whole lot of other things, recreating the world so that it offers all human beings the best kind of life that they can have. I know we're talking in these grandiose terms, but that's what's coming right away. And I think we're done.
This was very insightful. Thank you for sharing. So we're back again with another session with John. Very happy to have you back with us, John.
Happy to be back.
So, because you've been with Gurudev and the Art of Living for such a long time, tell me, what has changed in Gurudev from back then to now, and what hasn't?
You know, I've heard Gurudev say a number of times that he came in the way he is now. So there's a certain aspect of his consciousness that has never changed, that was there in the beginning and has never wavered. Circumstances have changed. His place in society has changed. His responsibilities certainly have changed. But underneath that, there's just something that's never changed at all, unchangeable, like that.
Yeah, but some people notice, and I also noticed that if you see his talks from the 90s, there's a lot of pauses.
Like yeah, and in those pauses, it's very interesting you bring that up. I edited the first Art of Living video, and it's called The Nature of Enlightenment. And if you're watching it, you get a little glimpse of what's happening. What he would do in those days, it was an intro talk, is that he'd put out a point, and then there'd be silence. But if you were in the room, you would have the experience of the point that he just put out. He would give you that experience. So there's an enormous amount of darshan in those early, you can feel it kind of when you watch the video, but if you're in the room, you're like that. And that was the way that people had an experience of who he was and what the possibilities of the course could be.
You mentioned this word called darshan.
Yeah.
What is darshan?
Darshan is the experience that you have being in the presence of divinity, of certain kind of consciousness. I suppose it's the experience you have from anyone. If you're in the same room as Donald Trump, you get Donald Trump darshan. Okay. But my favorite definition of darshan comes from another saint who blessed Gurudev when he was a teenager, a wonderful woman saint named Anandamoy Ma. And she said, darshan is that one thing, once you've seen it, you never need to see anything else again in your life. That's my favorite definition of darshan.
So you say that people would get a lot of darshan from Gurudev. What I want to ask is, centuries ago, Kabir says that I can't decide who to bow down to first, the divine or the Guru. What's the connection?
It's all the same. Although Guruji adds a third. He said the self, Guru, and divinity, however you want to describe divinity, all the same. All the same.
It's all very interesting. If you are inclined to believe, if you have that temperament or curiosity, but there's a lot of people who don't. And for example, a lot of my college friends, they still ask me, all these babas and spiritual gurus, they are all frauds, because that's what comes out of the media.
Right.
You never find news about real saints, but the bad ones, the unreal ones, the fake ones, make big news, and
Right.
that's what people remember.
Right.
So they ask me, what role do babas play actually? What role do gurus play? So my question is at two levels: what role does a guru play in one's life, and what role does a guru play in society?
You know, anything that you want to be good at in your life, you need a coach. We just got through the Winter Olympics. I'm so proud that my United States hockey team won the championship for the first time in 40 years over Canada, but they couldn't have done it without a coach. A coach sees where you are and sees the possibility of what you can become, whether it's golf or hockey or acting or becoming who you really are deep inside. So you need someone who sees where you are and sees the possibility, hopefully they're experiencing that themselves, possibility of what you can become, and shows you the way to get there.
So I will probe you a little bit more. And what's the skill set? If I go to a maths coach, I get better at maths. I go to a music coach, better at music. Swimming coach, better at swimming. What's the skill set that I develop more from a guru?
Experiencing who you are, who you really are.
Yeah. Now, in the world that
and who you can become.
Sure. In the world that we live in, maths is a useful skill set. It opens up some opportunities for me. Swimming does, music does, sports does. Who I am, being who I am, how is that useful?
Well, when you break it down into practical aspects, let's say that a guru or a teacher teaches you how to meditate. So the first thing that goes, if they're a good guru and it's a good technique, is the stress goes. The second is that you're able to be in the present moment, which very many people are not able to be. Their physical body's there and their mind's going back and forth. And third, there's this deep reservoir inside all of us of creativity and compassion and insight and intuition. And when you drop into that, it's a very, very practical set of skills. I taught at Harvard Business School, and I said to the graduates, and they were just raving about it, we got really high grades at that seminar. When you go back into your businesses, because it's a program where they came from their business and they were at Harvard and then they're going to go back, I said, tell your colleagues, don't tell your competitors. This skill of going deep inside and then expressing all of what you are in the boardroom or in whatever you're doing is the essential business skill. And most people are only utilizing that much of it. So if you're in a business where everyone in the business is going deep and expressing that, it's a clear advantage over what everybody else is doing in business. So it's very practical. People think some airy-fairy thing, but it's not. People that think that haven't experienced it. Once people experience it. So in the West, people say, oh, this is from a book that Sri Ravi Shankar wrote called, I think, something about prayer, a little pamphlet he wrote about prayer. He said in the West, people think believe and then you'll have an experience. In the East, it's like if you experience, you automatically believe. So I've had some very skeptical people taught over the years who didn't even want to be in the room for, somebody made them come or whatever. And when they have that experience of themselves at a deeper level, they're hooked immediately. So it's fine if people have these opinions about coaches or about meditation or any of those kinds of things. It's just that they haven't experienced it or they haven't had a good teacher. I tell people if you're going to have a meditation teacher, look for a meditation teacher, look for two things. One, a teacher who themselves is an accomplished meditator, they've been doing it for a while. And two, that it comes from a tradition. There are traditions of thousands of years of coaching meditation. And all of that trial and error over thousands of years gives you very powerful practical knowledge. So those are the two things I tell people to look for. If they want to look at our tradition, great. If they want to look at another tradition, great. But don't try to learn meditation off a computer or from somebody on the street who learned last week and now they want to teach you. It's different.
So, as a meditator for so many years, what experiences have you had, if you can share, which non-meditators might not have? And here the curiosity also is, experiences like you saw something or you had an out-of-body experience. So the curiosity is more inclined towards something extraordinary.
The flashy, right?
Yeah, sure.
I'm so lucky that a long time ago, Ravi Shankar said, teachers don't talk about their own experiences. So I'm a little reluctant to talk about mine. But even there, some experiences are for sharing generally, some sharing with close friends, and some stay in your heart.
So you've had a life of meditation, of spiritual practice with a guru, and a lot of service. And you had a successful corporate career as well.
Right.
So having had a very comprehensive view of most facets of life, what would you say, according to you, what is the purpose of life?
I think the purpose of life is very personal and very unique to each person. But I have to fall back on, again, what Sri Ravi Shankar has told me, which is that each of us comes to this world with a gift. And so there's a lot of fulfillment in slowly unwrapping the gift, discovering what it is, and then giving it to other people.
And what gifts do you feel have unraveled from you?
Oh, I don't know, not cool. You've known me for so long. You'd probably be a better judge of that than I would.
Well, for our viewers.
I don't know if I don't feel comfortable talking about gifts, but I feel like a force greater than me comes through me in my teaching, and I enjoy that. People seem to enjoy the music that I make. We all have gifts. I don't feel all that comfortable talking about my own. If you talk to people whom I teach or who are around me, you can ask them. Better them than me.
So you mentioned meditation as well. Meditation and sadhana. Why is it necessary, meditation and sadhana? And how does one make it powerful?
You should read Rishi Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. He outlines it very carefully. But to make it short and concise, we are consumed through our senses with the outer world. You could call it the scenery. And the outer world just overwhelms us 24 hours a day, or has the possibility of overwhelming us 24 hours a day. And I'm not just talking about being on our computer or the TV. Things that you see, people that you talk to, experiences you have, so overwhelms your senses that you never get a chance, or most people never get a chance to experience who they are inside. There's a traditional Vedic concept of success in life, and it's called 200% of life, which is 200% experiencing and enjoying the outer life without being imprisoned by it or overwhelmed by it, and 200% enjoying the inner life. But most people don't even know they have a possibility of an inner life, where they get just little glimpses here and there, and they don't have the skills to develop it over time. And so it's my experience that fulfillment in life comes from the inner, not from the outer, and the inner supports the outer, puts it in proper balance if you practice meditation regularly, and leads to great fulfillment and also great success in life. Somehow, especially in India, people have the idea that meditation takes you away from the world and it's a very otherworldly thing. My experience is just the opposite. People that dive deep in meditation, they come out, they're much more ready to engage in the world, and also to see the world as a part of themselves. So for instance, I had and maybe I mentioned this in part one, I had a very wonderful teacher. I spent some time in a Christian monastery, and one of my teachers in there he said, there's a lot of contemplative prayer happening there, like meditation. He said, when you find yourself at the center of your own heart, you discover you're at the center of everyone else's heart at the same time. So meditation is also really useful and valuable for seeing that you have a connection to everyone around you and a responsibility, a belongingness for that. So it's very practical in the world where people feel isolated, they feel lonely, and they don't necessarily feel like they have a responsibility for other people around them. So it's a great remedy for that as well.
So you mentioned a couple of stories the last time where you said Gurudev is more than the physical body.
Right.
So you think of him and you had a response. You think of something and he can read your mind. Have there been other instances where you felt that?
Many times. All the time, especially when I'm teaching. When I'm teaching one of our advanced courses, which is called Siam, and the first day I tell people, if you think, because I'm sitting in this chair, that I'm the one teaching this course, think again. Because it's his presence, his knowledge, his consciousness. It's just so present in every moment of that course for those students to feel it. That's really where the real learning happens. So I experience that all the time.
So some experiences from your teaching where you also, because you're also watching, as it unfolds, you're also watching, and the part of you which is watching said, oh wow, what was that?
Yeah, I think that the success of a teacher, they're teaching spiritual knowledge and they're in contact with something in the universe greater than themselves. It's just getting out of the way and letting that come through.
Yeah.
It's very simple. It's much more simple than people make it out to be. But I don't know how I weave this in, but one of my very favorite pieces of knowledge that I read in an email 4 or 5 years ago, and I say it on every course, Ravi Shankar said, if people only understood 2 things, that there's a power greater than them in the universe, and that power, whatever it is, whatever you call it, cares for them very deeply, he said his work on this planet would be complete. So when you teach something like Siam, where there's very deep meditation, there's the knowledge that's coming from the videos, and there's the experience of meditation, but there's something even deeper than that that's happening, some transformation that happens to each person on the course.
Yeah.
And for me, it's very easy to see that greater than his physical body energy in the room doing that with people. I especially see it, it's the most dramatic, even when I teach soldiers with post-traumatic stress. Their transformation from day 1 to day 5 is extraordinary.
So give us a glimpse of what some of your students have told you. This is how I came in, but what I found was something else.
Did I tell you this experience of the soldier named Tim? Did I talk about that?
The 23-year-old?
Yeah. That's a very normal experience. There is a place in each of us, and this is my experience as well as classical Vedanta, which is deeper than anything we've ever done, anything we've ever heard, any experience we've ever had, or who we think we are. And the people on the Vets course, the trauma comes from either something they've done that they regret, something they've seen, or someone they've lost. And it's such a traumatic experience that they identify with it. It's like that's who they are. And it's almost as if the trauma, when it happened, is so overwhelming that the system shuts down. So they have, if it was a computer, they keep trying to reboot. But all that they keep rebooting is reliving that experience again and again and again and again. But what happens in the darshan kriya in that course is, for the first time in their life, they go to someplace deeper than that. And they touch it, even for a moment. And there are characteristics of that. You could call it Shiva Tattva, you could call it big mind, you could call it whatever you want to call it. And one of them is innocence. And when they touch that, their whole life changes. It's not that the experience that they had that caused the trauma disappears, but it's put in some kind of perspective because they see, oh, I'm not just that, I'm this. It gives them incredible peace. I've known people that were on 12 medications from the Vietnam War for 40 years. Can you imagine? And now they're not taking any medications at all. Because that hold that experience had on them. A lot of the reasons that people struggle coming back who have post-traumatic stress is that all the therapy that happens on the surface. It's talk therapy or it's drugs to mask the symptoms. But the deepest trauma that people have is buried in their bodies. And so when you do this breathing, that all stuff disappears and you touch that place, even for a couple of seconds. and everything changes in your life. The possibility changes in your life. So I don't know that I'm answering your question. I'm just saying what my experience is. And I experienced something much greater than myself in the room that allows that to happen. You know, I remember a guy saying to me, I don't even know what I'm doing in this room. He said, you're not looking at anybody that's alive. He said, you're looking at a walking dead man. But he didn't leave the course feeling that way. Now, a lot of people have those experiences. It's just very dramatic on the VETS course, which is why they're very difficult to teach. They're very challenging to teach. And they're the most rewarding because you see people get their lives back.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm answering your questions or not, but keep going.
Yeah, I'll keep trying. So you also Gurudev has made you a Kaal Gyani as well, initiated you into
I knew
Kaal
this was
Gyani.
going to come up.
Of course. How can it not?
Kaal Gyani in
So-
my country is called a scanner.
Scanner. Okay.
Right.
All right. So which is also, I mean, extraordinary to somebody who doesn't know that you can see across time.
Yeah.
And when somebody asks you a question about their past or their future, what do you see and how do you answer?
I say what I see. First of all, we should be aware that this isn't something that comes off the newspaper funny pages or anything. It's a siddhi, it's a skill that's taught to people. And when you utilize that skill, your powers of intuition increase 10 times, 50 times, whatever. And there is a place, some people call it the Akashic Record, where all of past, present, and future exist. Actually, they all exist in the present moment. So if you can go deep enough into the present moment, all of that stuff is there, past, present, and future. And when you use that siddhi, that ability, any answer to any question, to some degree, can come. I don't know if I answered your question again.
No, you did. But any interesting experiences while you're reading somebody's?
Yeah, I have to remember to protect people's privacy because it's a private experience. But one that happened recently is, it's interesting. Even though I'm in America, I get calls from people all over the world. I don't even know how they find me. But so there was a family in a hospital in India, huddled over their father, who was in a coma, and half the family thought that it's okay to pull the plug, that the father was ready to go. The other half of the family was fighting fiercely to continue in the hope that somehow he would come out of the coma. And they asked me to scan to see what the right thing was.
No pressure.
A small little thing. But it was made very easy because when I practiced the scanning technique and I went inside, the father came to me.
Oh.
And he said, let me go, tell them I want to go.
Oh.
And it's fine. And when they heard that, there's a lot of peace and reassurance in the family.
Yeah,
They knew that it was the right thing to do. So things like that happen all the time. I mean, a lot of the questions I get in scanning are, when am I going to get a job? When am I going to find the person that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with?
Yeah.
You know, what to do about my mother-in-law?
Yeah.
Those kind of practical questions.
Yeah.
But some are deeper. People have experiences. There was this one woman who was terrified of animals. Like, if a dog came down the sidewalk on a leash, a little dog, she'd cross the street. She was terrified of animals. And it was, getting in the way because her friends had pets and stuff. And so we scanned, and I saw in a past life she'd been attacked and killed by a wild animal. And that trauma was still there, or that impression was still there. But once I told her, it's not from this life, it's from that life, and you're not going to get eaten by an animal in this life, you're okay. It just, whole thing lifted in her. She thought there was something wrong with her, all those kinds of things.
So that's interesting. An impression from another life is right now governing her behavior. Reassurance from you, or some sort of
it's not just
soothing.
reassurance. The Sanskrit word for truth is sat, and the sat of what comes through. It's not just like, it's almost not like going to a fortune teller or anything like that. I saw what the problem was, or something gave me what the problem was. And in speaking it out to her in the way that I saw it, the truth comes through with it. She knows what's being said is not something I conjured out of my head. that there's truth in it, and that truth gives her peace, gives her comfort.
No, what I meant was something that's been governing her behavior for lifetimes.
Correct.
And she becomes free when you tell her something.
It's very practical. I've seen so many people.
Practical for sure, but like hugely powerful also.
Yeah, can be. Often is.
And for you, it's just, I just tell them what I see.
I have nothing to do with it. Absolutely nothing to do with it. Just, what they say, there's all this stuff that gets made in Hollywood and it gets made in movies or newscasts or whatever, and it comes across the lines. And then there's the last mile, how it somehow gets into your house. I'm just the last mile. I'm not the person that creates these things. I just, it comes through me and it goes out. It's a very simple, it's profound, but the best scans are where you just completely get yourself out of the way. And the Siddhi helps you do that. And it just comes through like a freight train. Some people in the West might be put off in the beginning by appearance of somebody coming, like Sri Sri coming from India in robes and things, thinking that that person is representing a certain tradition or something that they can't relate to. But my experience of Sri Sri is that he's at a much deeper level than that, and he both transcends all the different traditions and upholds them all. So I was in a board meeting. I was a board member of the first board in the Art of Living with Sri Sri in a place called Aptos, California, in the Redwoods, early 90s. And right in the middle of the board meeting, he groaned and closed his eyes. We stopped the board meeting. I thought he was not feeling well. And he closed his eyes for about 5 or 7 minutes. Then he opened his eyes and he said, right at this moment, he said, thousands of people are being killed in secret in Eastern Europe. It was the time of Bosnia and Croatia and all that stuff that was happening there. He said, you won't hear about it for a while. It's being done in secret, but you'll read about it later. And he said, and most of the people that are being slaughtered, he said, they must be Christians, because as they're dying in this moment, he said, they're crying, Jesus, save me. Jesus, save me. Well, board meeting just went out the window. We were all just sort of looking at the floor, not knowing what to do. But after 5 or 10 more minutes, I thought I should say something to break the silence. And I said, well, if they're calling out to Jesus, how are you hearing him? And he said, I get calls on his line sometimes. So there's something deeper where somebody in his state of consciousness is connected to everything that's going on in the world.
But
they're all a part of, he feels like everyone is just a part of his own self.
Sure, but somebody who doesn't understand everything, from their perspective, if somebody is in genuine trouble and they're calling out, and somebody can hear that power, that presence, somebody like Gurudev, how do they help, and why wouldn't they help immediately when the call is
Who
quite
says he
immediate?
wasn't? Who says he wasn't? There's another program called the Blessing Program, which you know very well, I'm sure, which started out in that particular situation during the tsunami. People realized that someone in a higher state of consciousness has the power to bless and maybe take away some suffering or some misery. And there were too many people for him to reach out in this place in South India. There were thousands of people. So from inside him arose a technique which would allow other people to have that same power to bless. And first it was the people that was with him, and then eventually it got developed into a course. And that's one of the courses that I teach, is teaching people how to bless, so that no matter what situation people are in, there's always some power, some energy available to help with that situation. Remember what I said 10 minutes ago, that if people only understood 2 things, that there's a power greater than them in the universe, and that power cares for them very deeply. Blessings taps into that. So I'm sure he was helping the people that were suffering. I see that a lot. But that's not, you have to, it doesn't happen with a brass band in a very loud and noisy and showy way. It happens in a very subtle way, and you have to be in a kind of a subtle place to see it while it's happening. So when he gives darshan to thousands of people, just that glance, that whatever, you see people are incredibly uplifted. And sometimes if they have a question or dilemma in their life, even if they don't say it, something happens, it moves, some grace appears.
Yeah, my experience of watching that phenomena, people coming to him and him going through darshan line, is that many times, of course, they come to him because they're in pain and they identify the cause of that pain. Something in the family, something in health, something financial, whatever. But many times, what happens is they don't know what they need.
Right.
And he is able to help them identify what they need and give them that.
Right.
So very interesting to.
That's his job.
To
That's why he came.
What? Yeah. Yeah.
There was a funny conversation I had with him. He was a little bit more, how would I say it, spontaneous in the early days. And he would say more of what he was thinking or experiencing. And we were sitting in the kitchen. I think I told you yesterday that my third experience of a course was in San Francisco. We're sitting in someone's kitchen where he was staying in San Francisco. And he looked up and he said, wow, if you could see what's happening at this moment, you would be amazed. I'm like, please tell me, what do you see? And he said, there's just this circle of souls around the earth looking for human bodies. It's a very precious gift to have a human body. And there's a big waiting line. And people are just waiting for couples to get together so they can have a human body. And I said, why are they coming? He said, unfulfilled desire. And being a little cheeky in my early days, I said, is that why you came? And he said, no. He said, I came out of love. It was beautiful. You could just see he was completely fulfilled. He didn't need anything. Yeah. That's my experience of him 35 years later, is he has no personal needs, no desires, no unfulfilled ambition. Any desire he has is for, not for himself, it's for the benefit of people around him and the benefit of the world. That's the only reason he's come, and that's the only reason he does what he does.
So, yeah, let's go back in time to the early days of Art of Living, when there weren't so many people. There wasn't much of an organization. It was more friends, I think. The vibe was very friendly and less official. So what were those times like, and how was it like to spend time with Gurudev in a cozy group, courses, between sessions, in sessions, outside?
Well, first of all, there wasn't as much work to do.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of work to do because nothing had been done yet.
Yeah.
But there wasn't, a 20-city tour or something,
Yeah.
To plan.
Yeah.
So in the afternoon, sometimes we go to the beach or we'd take a hike. And in those days, he's still very innocent, but that innocence really, you can see it in the early tapes, really manifested in he was kind of getting used to America and what it was like and exploring and things. And just a lot of fun and laughter. At the same time, because there were so few of us, you really had to, when I say, I sit in a course and his energy just comes through and I'm not doing anything, it doesn't happen like on the first day you met him. What has to happen is you have to do a lot of work on yourself in order for that to happen. So there was a lot of that work going on, not just by us, but by him through us. And he would create situations where if he saw that people had blocks, in the beginning, Michael Fishman writes in his book about how he had challenges getting along with me. So what Gurudev did, we really wanted to go to Guru Purnima in a place called Loon Lake in Vancouver. It was a very famous Guru Purnima. It was either the second or the third one. And we're all traveling together with Gurudev. And we were in Seattle or Vancouver City, still not yet at Loon Lake. And Gurudev had some just incredibly kind of basic footage of what turned out to be ashram land that the local Rotary Club took from Bangalore. And he needed it made into a video. It was the first video. And so he told Michael and I that we had to make the video together. And then we couldn't go to Guru Purnima until it was done. So even though Michael was having trouble getting along with me, we had no choice. We had to work together. We locked ourselves and we're like, we're not going to not go to Guru Purnima. And we locked ourselves in a room for like 18 hours. and we came out with a video. So he was always doing that, always putting people in situations, because there was more time to work with people individually that were uncomfortable for them, or they needed to move beyond something, and they wouldn't do it. Either they didn't see that they had it, or they certainly didn't want to show it, or they weren't willing to confront it. There was another time when he had a manuscript for a book in Canada, in the Canadian ashram. He actually had several manuscripts. And he took the manuscript to one person and he said, I want you to edit this. He said, I want you to do it by yourself. You're completely responsible for this project. You take it from start to finish. Take the project. The person was, oh, so exciting. I've got this project from Gurudev. And then about a half an hour later, he took the same manuscript and gave it to another person and said, I want you to edit this. It's you only. Don't let anybody else.
Really?
And you take it from start to finish. Don't let anybody else interfere with it. And of course, the two people are, no, you haven't. No, you can't work on it. And he just laughed. He thought it was the funniest thing in the world. So there was a lot more of that because there was more time for that.
Yeah.
Really, push people's buttons. He was good at pushing people's buttons in those days. And he'd get you to do things that you really didn't want to do. I organized the first time that he came to the UN to speak. And he was hardly known in the West or the UN at all. But I got him on a roster of other spiritual figures. But the person that was the MC was kind of playing fast and loose with the agenda. And he was putting people on the stage that weren't in the list of people to speak. And the timing was getting all screwed up. And he skipped over where Gurudev Sri Shankar was supposed to speak. I was like, oh, got him all the way here from India. What's going on? So Gurudev looked at me with not a smile on his face at all. He said, this is your project. What are you going to do about this? What am I going to do about it? I don't know what I'm going to do about it. He's like, you better do something about it. And it wasn't his kind, compassionate face. It was like, dude, it's your moment here. So I walked up to the guy, and literally I was praying as I walked up the aisle, not knowing what I'd say, but at least I had a serious face. I said, you skipped this pundit, who's called Pandit Ravi Shankar, and I said, you skipped him. And to my horror, the guy didn't seem at all bothered by that. He's like, oh yeah, we have many people that are going to speak today. And I thought, oh, I am in deep trouble. And I prayed what to say. And I said, if he's not up on the podium in 15 minutes, he's going to walk out of this place. And half the room is going to walk out with him. I didn't know that half the room was going to walk out with him, but it sounded good. And he was on the podium within 15 minutes.
Nice.
But what I remember most is not that this guy was not being very professional, but how I felt like I really didn't want to do that. And I got something from that.
Yeah.
From getting over self-consciousness or cowardice or whatever it was, I got over it.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, if the teacher is genuine, you'll get put in that again and again and again because it allows you to be free over time.
Yeah. So
you did get some stories after all.
Yeah.
I want you to relax, I want you to feel like you're doing a good job.
No, so you mentioned that he has this knack of putting people in trouble in situations that they're not very comfortable. I'm sure he's done that with you too.
Too many times.
Have you asked for help and then gotten unexpected help that how do I do this now? And then some miracle happens and wow.
It's a good question. Let me think about that. Another thing where I had to do something that was uncomfortable to me. The answer to your question may come. I'm still thinking about that in one part of my brain.
Sure.
Is that we had a program with I won't say the name of it, but a very famous, prominent Indian American philanthropic group that gave millions of dollars to India. And it was comprised of heads of industry who had been very successful. And it was also a very socially prominent group. And after the earthquake in Gujarat, we were going to bring their kids, these wealthy Indian American kids, to do seva at the earthquake. And I was one of the people negotiating with this group. And they're all obviously very powerful, successful people. And so I said, we think it's important to do this. They'll come to the ashram, they'll take the course, then we'll bring them up. And the person came back with just all these kind of demands, and like it was a negotiation. It wasn't very pleasant, and it was very kind of pushy, I thought. And I showed the letter to Gurudev. I'm like, what do I do? This person's being kind of a... And he said, you come back at him with a letter that's much stronger than his letter. Like, you give back to him what he gave you 10 times more. It's not my nature to do that, you know? And he said, you just send off a letter that will get their attention. So I had to do that, even though it was not so comfortable for me to do that. So yeah, many, many times I've been placed in that situation. Tell me your question again. I'll see if I can find another answer to it.
Have you asked for help and received it in unexpected ways?
I was traveling to Los Angeles through this place called Northridge to drop my car off at an airport to go to a business conference. And somebody that was with me going to this business conference kept hearing Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya inside.
Kept hearing
it inside, that mantra. And I said, what? Why do you think you're hearing it? She said, I don't know, maybe something dangerous is going to happen. It was the area that this huge earthquake happened a week later that many, many people died in, the biggest earthquake in modern Los Angeles history. So we came back, the earthquake happened luckily when I was out of town, and I came back. I didn't want to be in LA, so I went back to Santa Barbara where I was living to kind of let things settle down in LA. And then I was coming down the 101 main road to LA, and I heard Om Namah Shivaya in my head, and I thought, oh my God, is it going to be another earthquake? And I rounded the corner, and all the traffic was stopped. I've been going about 70 miles an hour. So it's a freeway. So I punched my brakes, and ended up about that far behind the last person, thinking, oh, thank God. And then I saw this truck coming behind me, and it hadn't even begun to stop. And it was about 20 feet behind me, and I couldn't go anywhere, right? I was stuck. And it got within about 10 feet of me, and I felt like this could be the end of me. And it was one of the only times in my life when I felt like death approaching. And so I was like, you know, it's my time, Gurudev, take me over. That's what's going to, I really felt like I was going to die. And something happened. It was almost like invisibly, the car sort of bounced off my car without touching it and did 360s, you know, across 3 lanes of traffic, smashed into a guardrail. What had been a pickup truck with a big body in the back became like tiny little compact, and all the windows went out. And you'd think I would want to stop and see what happened to that person, but a little voice in my head said, get out of here, because other cars were now, it was going to be a multi-car crash. And I got out of there and stopped on the side of the road about a mile, and just my heart was pounding, and I knew I had somehow been spared. So I called Gurudev that night, and I said, boy, you almost lost one of your teachers today. He said, I know. And like, he heard me. And I said, why am I still alive? And he said, because you have a lot more work to do for me. I don't know if he was being funny or whatever, but I was shaken. But in that moment, which I thought was the moment of death, he was present, he was there. And so I never doubted after that his presence in my life at every moment. It's a fact of life, always there. But I think it's a big jump, talk about coaching, when you go from seeing a coach in his or her physical form and relating to them that way, to a second jump where you see they're much bigger than their physical form, to a third jump where you see that physical form is omnipresent with you all the time, doing things for you probably that you don't even know.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
See, you got another story. You're a good interviewer.
Has he said things that you thought there's no way he could know that?
Yes. Many. In my own life.
Yeah.
And you want to know what they are?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh no, I mean something that you can share.
Yeah, I was describing experiences that I'd had in the monastery in contemplative prayer. And he said, yeah, that's true, but you're also experiencing this, something that I'd never told anybody. And I was like, how does he know that? That all happened before I even met him. It's like, yeah, you experienced this, but then you are also experiencing that at the same time. And I was like, wow, you're right. So if you really open yourself up to a person in that state of consciousness, they know you through and through, and they may know you better than you know yourself. And they may see things in you that you don't know. And I see that all the time. He brings out hidden talents and gifts in people and different things that people have no idea that they have. All for their own good.
Any experiences you want to share from Navratri, Shivratri, the big occasions where Gurudev also is in a different space? Any experiences out of the ordinary on those occasions?
I think they may fall into that, teacher doesn't talk about their own experience. It's my refuge.
Come on. For the greater good, John.
Yeah, I know.
For the greater good.
There's an expression in Japan, these Japanese expressions, that the nail that's sticking up is the one that gets the hammer.
Yeah.
I like keeping a low profile. I think we talked about this yesterday, or maybe we didn't. Gurudev said I was talking to some people in Australia that I was working with. If a teacher seems too like their students, get too close to them, students don't think that the teacher has anything to teach them. But if the teacher appears to be in a different plane than they are, too far from them, then they'll think, it's not for me, I can never be like that. So you have to sort of be in the middle somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, you said that yesterday.
I'll say it again. That's my comfort zone. What I feel like is, I think I may have told you that when I met Sri Sri, a voice in my head said, take off your shoes. You're in the presence of a Brahman Gyani. I didn't know really what a Brahman Gyani was in those days. I knew about enlightenment and unity consciousness, but Brahman consciousness, even many enlightened people don't get there. It's a very refinement, seeing everything as Brahman. Sarvam Brahman Mahum Re Re. Everything I see is Brahman. Yeah. So I asked Gurudev, which of the saints in the world are Brahman Gyanis? In those days, he would answer questions like that. So he said, this one yes, this one no, this one yes, this one no. Thankfully, I've forgotten all that.
Okay. Okay.
But I said, are all the Brahman Gyanis in the world known? Or are some of them hidden? He said, I'll tell you a story. He said, in meditation, I kept having the thought to go to this village, very remote village. Took a while to get there, but it kept coming. He didn't know why. And so finally I thought, I need to go to this village. He told me the story himself. It was such a remote village. Number one, it took a long time to get there. And number two, there wasn't even electricity in this village. It was living like people lived in olden days. And in the middle of this tiny little village, there was a temple. And there was a pujari, casting horoscopes, doing marriages, doing all the things that everybody. And he said, and John, he said, I recognize the pujari in that temple as a Brahman Gyani, he said.
Oh.
And I hadn't seen him for 1,000 years.
Oh.
So there's this person in the highest state of enlightenment in this tiny little village without even electricity, marrying people and doing pujas and stuff. So you never know.
Yeah.
We had a joke in the early days in the early living. We used to say, it's very hard to tell who's enlightened. It's very easy to tell who isn't.
True.
So, one more story you got.
You have anything on WCF?
I can't remember which WCF it was. What's the big one in India?
Delhi, 2016.
Yeah, Delhi. It was in Delhi. At the World Cultural Festival, and I was taking care of some VIPs. And I was up on the stage with this VIP family. And we all meditated. And you could hear a pin drop. There were millions of people there. There were no babies crying. There were no birds chirping. There was nothing. And I had the experience at that moment that there was a force, a silent force coming out of that group of millions of people that was like lifting the consciousness of the whole planet at that moment. It wasn't a wish, it wasn't a imagination, it was the experience of being part of a force greater than myself that was lifting the whole planet into a new possibility in that moment. It was amazing. And then you see, you're teaching some small course somewhere, or you're doing this, you're doing that, some project. You see how it all knits
Ties up.
together.
Yeah.
And it becomes like what would I say? Like a big field of consciousness, that's like over the planet and lifting the planet little by little by little. Even people that aren't aware of it, even people whose consciousness is in a very different place, they don't know it, but their activities being affected sometimes despite their small cell. But I felt a big lift in that moment, and I was so grateful to be a tiny little part of it.
Amazing. Would you like to sing something for us?
I don't know, would you like me to?
Yeah, sure.
So there's a song, I'll give you a choice. Song on my first CD, which is called Present Moment, written by Paramahansa Yogananda, called Door of My Heart. That's one of Gurudev's favorite songs. He said it's one of his favorite songs because we think we're singing this song to God, but God is singing a song to us. And then there's other songs from the early days of the Art of Living that had been kind of asleep for 20 or 30 years, and the latest thing he's asked me to do is to sort of revive some of those songs. So you get your choice. Which you want?
I want both.
So this song was written by one of my musical mentors. Her name is Divya Prabha. She's no longer in her body, but many, many of the songs that are sung all over India, they don't know that she wrote them. And we used to name courses. There would be courses and songs in the courses of the same name. And the name of this course and the name of the song it's called Ancient Love. And
Teaching love.
Ancient Love.
Ancient love.
And it hadn't been sung in a very long time, and Gurudev said, we need to revive those songs because something of the spirit of the early days are captured in those songs.
Yeah.
So many loves, so many lives. It seems we've been here so long, and nothing can give you that peace that you've wanted, and you've wanted that peace so strong. But down through the ages, through the hearts of the sages, they've carried it like a flame. Through the winds of desire, they've carried this fire, and it's here within reach of your hand. So come back, come back, come back to the ancient love. From the earth beneath you to the sky above comes the call of the ancient love. So offer your troubles to the light. It's always the darkest at the end of the night. Ancient heart rises up like a dove when it finally finds the ancient love. So many lives, it seems we've been here so long. Nothing can give you that peace that you've wanted, and you've wanted that peace so strong. Ah, but down through the ages, through the hearts of the sages, they've carried it like a flame. Through the winds of desire, they've carried this fire, and it's here within reach of your hand. So come home, come home, come home to the ancient love. From the earth beneath you to the sky above comes that call of the ancient love. The ancient love.
Thank you so much for your time, John, for talking to us and sharing all the wonderful stories and the lovely knowledge and your experience.
Thank you for having me, and hope we can do this again sometime.
Absolutely, would love to.
Very happy to be with you.
Thank you so much.